Boom.
No, we
All
got
right.
this. We got this.
All right. I think we're here. Do you have Twitch
We're
open?
ready? No.
Shit, can you open Twitch and check? Because I have not enough monitors, but if we're live, hello.
Hi.
Everybody. My shirt says I'm gay, in case you forgot, because I'm back.
That's wonderful.
2024.
We're live?
I think we're live? Okay, excellent. Welcome to... This is how it's just going to be. Welcome back to whoever's here, to the cast of us. I think my microphone's a little hot, actually. The unofficial Last of Us podcast. Oh, thank you. I'm in the middle of introducing us. I'm going to start over. Welcome back to the cast of us, the unofficial Last of Us podcast. I'm your host, Zoe Terhune. I am joined, of course, by my lovely friend and co-host, Tafrey Mongkuo. Tafrey, say hello again.
Hello, it's me. I don't have glasses this time.
What? Taff got fucking LASIK.
I got LASIK.
And now I want to get LASIK. I want to get the skin on my eyes peeled off or whatever the hell it is.
It's so beautiful.
Oh,
so crystal clear.
Am I going to love the smell of my own eyeballs burning?
Yes, it's my favorite flavor.
Oh, cool. Like the Birdie Bots every flavored beans or whatever the fuck. Or I actually have Bean Boozled. That's what it is. The Bean Boozled. LASIK eye surgery smell.
So we have a podcast.
Yeah?
We gotta get to the podcast.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I thought we would have some like cute banter at the beginning.
I love our cute banter, but the people need to know that we are the #1 Last of Us podcast on the planet, and there's no others.
Yeah, what Taff said. That's definitely true. Anyway, we are so excited to be back, but this isn't season 2 just yet. Not quite yet. Also, hi, Leyline. I don't know if I should really address chat or not when we're doing a pod. I think, why not?
Why not?
Right? Who cares?
We love them. Thank you for joining us.
We love chat. Today is actually going to be, it's not season 2, but it's a special, like, in-between mini-episode situation, where we're just going to quickly talk through the casting updates and award shows and some other stuff that came up, maybe some predictions for season 2, and then we'll be back in the coming weeks for our second season, which will focus on Last of Us Part 2, the game, and now that the remaster is out, actually, as of what, yesterday? Yesterday.
As of yesterday.
I bought it an hour ago.
Yeah, I got the upgrade.
Hell yeah, me too. I popped my disc in, got that $10.83 upgrade.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, so stay tuned for season 2. This is also a great opportunity for us to test out this new format where this season we're going to stream on Twitch, upload the VOD to YouTube, and the audio to Spotify. And hopefully that all works out well and there's no hiccups. So if you are listening to us but you want to see our beautiful faces, go to twitch.tv/TrudelsStrudels. That's TRUDELS. It's my middle name twice, kind of.
I love it.
With an S. Strudels, that's it. Anyway. Or YouTube or youtube.com/Zoe Terhune. I'm not going to spell that for you. Quick reminder, this is not a spoiler-free podcast. Leyline is in chat saying that they still need to play The Last of Us. This is not a spoiler-free podcast, so if you care, you might want to go. It's up to you. I'm not your mother. I am mother, but I'm not your mother. All right?
But not mother.
Taff, are you ready to talk about it?
I'm so ready to talk about it. Let's do this.
Let's do it. Let's talk about first what we know so far about season 2. That'll be mostly what we're going to talk about. So, okay, Leyline does know what happens in the game. That's great. We know that the events of the game, part 2, are going to span more than one season. They were not specific about how many.
Yeah.
But we know that it's definitely more than one.
Now, do you think that they're probably going to cut it off like at that halfway point right before you switch to Abby? Because that's what I'm thinking.
That's a good thought. As you were saying that, I was like, what if they draw out the first like hour of the game to give us more backstory of like Jackson and how Jolie and Ellie's relationship has evolved, and then they end it at Joel dying?
That could be a possibility. I mean, just get all the flashbacks and everything, and then kind of put that as its own season.
I really love the non-linear storytelling of the game, so,
I think so too.
I think it would make sense if you see everything from Ellie's point of view. It stops in the theater, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, it stops like right after Jesse gets shot in the face, pretty much.
Yeah.
And then we wait another 2 years, and then it's just Abby. That would be, I don't know. That might piss some people off. It pissed people off. It pissed players off.
I think that might give a lot of people like enough time to like dissociate with the franchise a little bit, so that when you're getting back in and just learning about Abby's story,
maybe you're
it's not coming off of the hate that you would probably be feeling at that moment in the game.
I like that theory. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
We also know that there is a projected 2025 release, so we are going to be hanging in tight for just a little bit, just another year.
That's fine.
2, whatever time they mean in 2025. It could be December 2025, and then we'll be suffering.
Yeah, well, Bella Ramsey needs to get taller. That's all.
I don't think that's happening. They're 20 years old.
Oh.
I think it's a little late.
Some stilettos or something,
Some platform Crocs or something.
Some movie magic. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, they'll do the like trick where you put like mirrors under people to make them appear taller somehow.
Exactly. That's how we'll get them.
Yeah, that's fun. We know that it's shooting in Vancouver. I believe last season was shot in Calgary. But Vancouver is, you'll notice, close to Seattle. I did have to look that up on a map because I don't know anything about Canada's geography.
Yeah, Ontario, Vancouver, same thing, right? Cold.
Literally, to me, I don't know.
It's a very.
I thought Nova Scotia was west, but I think it might be east. So
That's in the Americas. Interesting. We're all learning today. That's wonderful.
Nova Scotia's in America?
Yeah, like north.
It's not. Elliot Page is from Nova Scotia, and he's Canadian. I know this because I had a huge crush. Still have a huge crush on him.
Yeah, well, like
Nova Scotia, Canadian province. What are you talking about?
That's North America.
Yeah, but you said the Americas with the implication that you meant America.
I did not say.
Well, then all of Canada's in the Americas.
Listen, like they're all America. We're all one whole, separate from the other ones, sort of thing.
Fine.
You know what I mean?
I realize that I think I just misinterpreted what you said.
I love maple syrup.
I don't. I only like the fake stuff.
We got to cancel the podcast.
No, we don't.
This is terrible.
Please don't. What else? We also know that the story of the show will be true to the game, which whenever somebody says that, I think they're pretty much just alluding to Joel's gonna die.
Yeah.
And I mean, he has to.
It has to be the exact same way.
He has to.
That's a very good way to end like the premiere episode.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh,
like,
God.
That's gonna be a good.
If it's the premiere, people are gonna be really upset that like Pedro Pascal, like Joel has a lot of scenes in part 2 despite being dead, but it's not that many. Like Pedro Pascal could have probably like a scene per episode if they do a 9-10 episode season.
Or they could have like, a Bill and Frank sort of thing where it's just like all the flashbacks in one solid episode. And that's like just happens to be the highly rated episode of that season. So yeah,
I'm sure that they're going to beef out the flashback stuff in particular. Yeah. But as long as that last flashback in the game where you find out Ellie and Joel's last conversation is where it is in the game, like very much at the very end.
It has to be.
Oh, it has to be. Ooh.
Yeah. Gut punch.
Oh God, it's heartbreaking. And then we can get into casting. We obviously know that the main cast from last season will be returning. That's Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey, of course.
Yep.
We also, I think no one else in terms of returning cast members are confirmed, but I think we can pretty much make the inference that Gabriel Luna will return as Tommy, Rutina Wesley will be Maria again. We'll probably see Merle Dandridge, my love, as Marlene.
Mother.
Oh, never not playing Marlene, this woman.
Yes.
Just, she sticks to her guns, man.
Thank God.
Good for her. Like, none of these people are confirmed, right? But they're very likely. Anna Torvis Tess, unless there's a flashback, I don't think she's coming back.
Right, which is unfortunate. She was fantastic as Tess.
She got an Emmy nomination, I think, so she did her business. And we did get confirmation that Nick Offerman and Maury Bartlett as Bill and Frank will not be returning. That was obvious to me, but people were apparently clamoring for a spin-off. Shut the fuck up. It's perfect the way it is. I understand.
I'd be down.
I understand loving something so much to the point where you want more, but I also understand that sometimes something is perfect the way it is and a franchise does not need to be continued, at least in a specific way. In this case, I would I watch the Bill and Frank show? Yes. Would I love it? Also, probably yes. Do I think it needs to exist? Absolutely not. That one episode is perfect.
Yeah.
And then we can get into the new cast additions.
Ooh.
I did something fancy. I prepared Discord with some pictures.
Oh my gosh.
Some visual, what I said.
Okay.
All right, so
some visual aids.
Check this shit out. Boom. We've got Caitlin Dever as, I wrote Ellie. That's insane. Abby. I think I wrote Ellie because my lizard brain had been wanting Caitlin Dever to play Ellie before the show was cast. But obviously she's my age. She's 27. She's a little too old for Ellie. So she actually
where's she from? Yeah, like
where's she
haven't
from?
Seen her before.
I like Ohio. Oh.
I mean, like I haven't seen her in any other.
Have you seen Justified? It was an
No.
AMC show. Really good show with Timothy Olyphant. She was in that as like a 14-year-old.
Okay.
She was one of the two main characters in Booksmart, which is one of my favorite movies. And she was in Dope Sick, which I have not seen. But I love her.
Actually, I do know her from one role. I forgot I did know this. She was in Uncharted 4.
Right.
As Nathan Drake's daughter.
Yes.
For just like one segment of like at the very end of the game. So that might have been like how she like got a connection in with like Naughty Dog and everything. Neil Druckmann was also directing that game. So, and she looks very similar to Abby.
She does.
Like, this is great.
She needs to beef up a little bit. I have no complaints with seeing Caitlin Dever buff as fuck. I will be thrilled.
Yeah, and honestly, it's fine. And I think everybody, like, not even Pedro Pascal is as like, just meaty.
These people aren't video game protagonists.
Exactly.
They're real people.
If they wanted to be like more like realistic with their approach and everything, that's perfectly fine too. I'm very excited.
I know. I think I read somewhere that she is training. I don't think she's going to be as beefy as Abby because Abby is
Bailey was training for Abby. So
method acting.
Yeah. I think they might be putting her through the exact same training.
Yeah, I love that.
Similar.
Any other comments on Caitlin Dever? Oh, I saw a lot about you brought up this person's name earlier, but I can't remember what it was. The other person people wanted cast. Well, people wanted Florence Pugh, which I think is insane. Shannon Berry? Is it Berry? Something like that. Sorry to Shannon Berry. I know that she's in a show called The Wilds. I haven't seen it. A lot of people were like, oh, but she would have been perfect. She looks a lot like Abby. I think she's also pretty built.
Yeah.
Who's to say how the casting process is? We do know actually that I think Craig Mazin said that it's very similar to the casting process for season 1, if not exactly the same. I don't really know what that means. It means something.
But they don't necessarily have to be perfectly accurate towards the games, and that's honestly fine. It's more about like either acting ability or just like scheduling, all this other stuff that could go into it. And honestly, when it comes to Abby's actress, like, honestly, we should just be praying that like people are going to be kind and sensible and honestly good to these actresses. But
there's a couple. I have a couple notes. One, the first being, I know for a fact that Caitlin Dever is a fabulous actress. I think she'll be able to handle the heaviness of Abby, but also Abby has a lot of scenes of like levity, and she makes a lot of little jokes when she's with like Lev or Manny, her friends, Owen. And I think Caitlin Dever will have that perfect balance. I have no idea how this Shannon Berry person is. I'm sure she's great. I'm sure she's fine. We don't even know if she auditions. Like,
right. It's just kind of one of those fan castings, So
yeah, but also, I think, and you'll see, like, the next two people cast are much more lesser known actors. But Caitlin Dever, I feel like if you cast somebody who's pretty well known already, you clearly don't know who she is, but people know her. People who watch movies know her. And I feel like that opens her up to less hate. But if you bring an unknown or lesser known person and then you make them do what Abby does,
Yeah.
I feel like it's much easier for people to be like, fuck you, Abby, I hate you. It happened a lot with like the Walking Dead cast, because a lot of those people were not known for anything. Like the woman who played Lori Grimes, who was annoying. I rewatched it recently. She's fucking annoying, frankly, but she didn't really do anything wrong.
Yeah, and it's never the actor's fault for that.
But people project it onto them because they don't know them.
Exactly.
So it's hard to extricate Lori Grimes from Sarah Gillies or whatever the fuck her name was, something like that.
Right.
So yeah, I think that Caitlin Dever is also just like a safe choice in terms of bullying. Like if people had gotten,
going to be a problem. Like I'm hoping that it's not going to be as bad as when part 2 came out, but
yeah, totally.
Yeah. We know the internet.
I mean, like, imagine, because some people wanted Florence Pugh to play Abby, which I think is insane, but I love Florence Pugh, and I think she's really hot, so I would have no complaints.
Yeah.
But Florence Pugh wouldn't have gotten bullied, because she's Florence Pugh. Everybody knows who Florence Pugh is.
Yeah, you would hope.
I would hope.
And
everybody should. Everybody should, because just looking at her will improve your life.
True.
Anyway, moving on. We've got young Mazzino?
Yes, young
as
Mazzino.
Jesse. Here, I don't know why that got moved over. Here, let me pull him in. There he is. Very pretty man. I don't know anything about this young, fine gentleman.
You have not seen Beef.
I have not seen Beef. It's on my watch list. I know he's in Beef, and that was like pretty much the only thing of note I could find from him, which is kind of cool. I like that they're pulling it. Like Bella Ramsey's a good example because, yes, she was in Game of Thrones, and she was really memorable in Game of Thrones, but I don't think she was really a household, or sorry, they were really a household name.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're like a Tumblr kid or chronically online like myself.
Yeah.
But I think I think that they're pulling in actors who have a couple of really well-liked things under their belts but aren't necessarily that well-known is really nice.
Yeah. Because I think like one of the major appeals of the Last of Us series in general is that these people look like regular people and not like super...
I don't know, Jesse's pretty hot.
I mean, yeah, but like you can also see these kind of people like off the street, like the most attractive people in your neighborhood or something like that, instead of just like these are A-list celebrities that, of course, got this role because they're gorgeous, you know.
But you're talking about a show that has Pedro Pascal and Caitlin Dever and this young man and but they're all very beautiful.
They could have been like, you know, I'm thinking of hot celebrities and...
you're right. Like, Pedro Pascal, I think, is objectively a good-looking and appealing man, but I think a lot of that is his personality. I don't think he's like... Who's a man that's beautiful? Like, Idris Elba.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, that would be at the top. Or like, one of the Bonds, or a Batman. I don't really know.
I don't know. I guess people like Tom Cruise. I don't, but...
Who?
Exactly. All right. Anything left to say about Mr. Young Mazzino?
I'm very interested in seeing, like, his character was like more of a comedic role in Beef, so I would like to see how he portrays like a more dramatic role, because Jesse was more of that kind of big brother sort of attitude. So we'll see how he performs. I'm very excited. Glad he got the role.
All right. Now we'll move on to Dina, who also looks like Jenna Ortega, I think that's her name in this picture, who is played by Isabella Merced. Taff and I had a discussion previous to this podcast about if her last name is pronounced Merkt or Merced or Merced or Merced. I think it's Merced. This is a lesser known person. I don't really know how she pronounces her last name. I think
Merkt is cooler, but I understand and I respect the actual pronunciation of her name, whatever that may be.
Yeah. And I think this is a good point to bring up because there's just some rumblings going on the internet. It seems like a pretty small circle of people, but obviously the world is a little bit bananas right now. I'm going to take her down actually for a second. I'd prefer you to see me when I'm talking about something very serious. Complicated, nuanced issues permeating the world, but, you know, there's obviously some in particular that are more notable. And they're not Donald Trump related, for once. And I just wanted to say really quickly, especially in regards to this particular actor because it came up a lot with her. It's important that we engage with the media we are consuming very critically. It's also important to acknowledge art versus artists, but also how an artist's opinions can impact the art that they are creating. So we may broach this topic that I am trying to not say specifically for specific reasons that I can't talk about right now. But we may broach this topic if it comes up, and it may or may not. We shall see. But for now, we just wanted to encourage anyone watching or listening to keep an eye out for mis or disinformation about certain things, about everything, really. Whatever you read, whether it's something about a really important political or social issue, or like dog health, because I get a lot of TikTok sent to me about like my dogs, and I go and research this and it's not true. So just keep an eye out for mis and disinformation on the internet. It's pervasive. It permeates the entire fucking goddamn web. That's why they call it what did they used to call the internet? the World Wide Web. Thank you.
Yeah.
This podcast is obviously for entertainment purposes. We have our personal strong opinions. But this show is not really a political one. It's not a news show, but we just wanted to assure people we're not ignorant. We know what's going on. We've researched. I've done a lot of reading and a lot of critical thinking about social media posts in particular lately, especially from people from my hometown. Thanks, guys. And we just don't necessarily want to engage with some topics so serious in what is meant to be a lighthearted podcast. But we also don't want to talk around it as much as possible. But we know that it's important to acknowledge things, but for some reasons, it's just not necessarily the place or the time. If you want to hear about my personal opinions on everything going on in the world, follow me on social media. I'm verbal. But yeah, I think that did you have anything you want to add to that, Tafrey?
Nope, I think you spoke as much as we need to talk about when it comes to that subject for now.
Yeah, it's hard to engage with The Last of Us without addressing can I say the Z word?
Sure.
Zionism.
Yes.
It's very hard to engage with it without addressing it. And it's something that, like I said, really nuanced, really complicated. Obviously, Taff, please stop me if I get too much, but I personally think that genocide is probably not that complicated. But there's certain things about the problem. I don't like calling it a conflict because I don't think of it as a conflict.
Right.
But yeah, I think my point's mostly getting across.
Now we should also say the only reason why we even made that disclaimer in the first place was because in the game, Dina, a beloved character, we love Dina, is Jewish. I believe Israeli Jewish.
I don't know.
But that doesn't necessarily have any repercussions in game or in the story.
Not why I brought it up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, one interesting thing to note about Isabella, the actress that plays Dina within the show, is that she is Hispanic, we believe.
Yes,
right?
She's a Latina.
And that kind of casting choice was not made, at least in my personal point of view, because of the events of what's happening in the real world. I believe Dina also had a cameo in season 1.
She did,
where she was played by, I forgot her name.
I forgot her name as well, but she's also a Latina actress.
Yes. So this was kind of in their intention and their direction for Dina going into the Last of Us TV show, and I don't really think it has anything to do with the global issue going on right now.
Yeah, that's definitely a thing to note. But this woman, Isabella Merced, is not really known for much. She was in Transformers: The Last Knight, which I guess is one of the Transformers movies.
I've seen it, and she was in it.
And she was in it. Cool. Yes. Was she good? It's Transformers, so.
It's Transformers. Like,
gotcha.
Nobody's really good, but
excellent.
You know, she was a very strong role for when she was in the show, and also Dora. from the live action
Yes,
Dora movie.
from the live action Dora movie, and I mean, honestly, I thought that looked kind of good in like a campy way. I didn't see it.
Yeah, I think I watched it because it was just like in between channels and everything one day, and I was just like, this isn't that bad. And
Yeah.
she actually, like, that was the movie where I was just like, she has a career going for her. Like I can definitely
Nice.
see this as being like a start. So when I heard this was the casting, I was just like, oh, I thought we were going to continue with the actress from the cameo last season, but if we're using Isabella, that's great.
Sure.
She's a strong actress. So
but she was also in an animated Dora spinoff, but I think it's funny that she did not play Dora in that.
Are you serious?
In that spinoff, she played like I was on Wikipedia last night. I think it might have been like Kate or some generic ass name.
What the hell is Kate?
I know, right? Not even Boots.
Not even like, more of a Latina name or anything? Kate? Okay.
Who am I to say, really?
Cool. She has played like 2 other Isabels though. One including the Isabel in The Last Night Transformers.
Okay. Got
so
creative with the names here.
Yeah.
All right. That's the cast that we know about.
Yeah.
The only people missing are like, well, actually, there's quite a lot. Abby's friends are all uncast. I thought they would maybe do a second round of casting reveals the week after they announced all those, because they did like a 3-day succession kind of thing, which is smart marketing, good tactic, Sony team or HBO team or whoever it was. But they did not do a follow up. They'll probably either never get to it. They may never just like do a bit. We'll just find out.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's Manny and Owen. I'm actually excited about Owen because having replayed the game a second time, I don't know if I've come out about this, but I think Owen is the most reasonable character in the game.
Are you really interesting?
Yes. I've played it
this is
many
something
times.
I'm gonna be very excited about when we like get into playing the second game, because I don't remember a lot. I've only played it once. I had a negative reaction at first, but ever since I've been doing a spiritual reflection on part 2, and I'm ready to undergo a second playthrough now. But Owen seemed to be sensible in some ways. He really did want to just get the fuck out of there.
Yeah.
So
my first playthrough, I hated him.
Yeah.
I think it might just be that he was like a cishet white man who was like conventionally fine looking. Like, I think he was just annoying.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I've played it 3 or 4 times now, and I wouldn't say that I particularly like him. I definitely don't dislike him, but I do think, especially like juxtaposed against Mel, he's a lot more tolerable.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, with a lot of Abby's friends, I think they were kind of not as strong as the side characters in part 1, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that we get to expand in this season of The Last of Us with their characters, with their relationship with Abby, make me care about them a little bit more.
Right.
And I hope that whoever they cast is able to bring that kind of like, I want to feel bad when Manny dies,
Yeah.
Instead, I was just like, all right, he's gone. I didn't. Let's keep going.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of potential with those characters. Because they have like a strong sort of archetype to each of them, but they're not really fleshed out that much. And I do wonder if that was, like thinking about it, I don't think it was really an intentional choice, but it does make me think almost like we got to know these characters, but we didn't get to know them any further because they were brutally murdered, and that kind of reflects on like their lives were cut short that Abby's probably feeling.
That might have been intentional, honestly.
I don't know,
because
there's a lot of things.
Of the game like is like, sorry that we're diverted from the topic, but it's just I feel like a lot of part 2 was that like just bad things happen and you can't really like keep everything in mind.
You can't stop this. That's what Ellie says.
I am curious of whether or not they are going to get Jeffrey Wright to reprise his role, similar to Merle Dandridge.
Who's that?
Jeffrey Wright was the leader of the
Isaac.
Isaac.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Oof.
super like well-known actor and everything. Like was in Westworld and is in American Fiction running
Oh,
right now
he's
in
that
theaters.
dude.
Yeah. So
I didn't know
I
that.
assumed that he would be in the casting call and
That would be
everything,
cool.
but yeah.
That'd be cool.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, now that we've successfully derailed, as we tend to do,
Yeah.
let's re-rail,
Mm-hmm.
and we can talk about some award stuff real quick, just because it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
It was nominated, Last of Us, for a bunch of awards across the Emmys, even the Game Awards, Golden Globes, MTV Movies and TV Awards, People's Choice. You can go on to a lot of smaller, even like a GLAAD Media Award, like spanning all of the award shows.
Don't even know what that one is.
You don't know what homophobe? It's the fucking gay and lesbian.
What? They don't send me a letter about it.
Homophobe. Cancel him.
No, not like this.
Not like this. But okay, let's cover some of the most notable news. The Game Awards won Best Adaptation, which is kind of a no-brainer. MTV.
Well, granted, there were a lot of good adaptations last year, so I think that just kind of shows how quality of an adaptation it was.
Were there?
Yes.
Like
there
what?
There was like Mario. There was
Mario was pretty good. It wasn't. It was probably better for the fans, but
yeah, there was others that I wasn't prepared for.
There was there a Halo one? Am I misremembering?
There was a Halo one, but
I feel like nobody
that
watched
was,
it.
Dog Water. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, but there were a few that were like really good adaptations last year, so I'm glad. Overall, I think we're done with like the video game, movie, film, TV series curse, so that's good.
I hope so. I like adaptations.
Me too.
I'm excited for the Fallout one and Lara Croft, Tomb Raider. Obviously, I'm excited about Tomb Raider. MTV Awards won Best Show, Best Hero, and Best Duo. It was also nominated, deeply upsettingly, for Best Kiss, which is apparently an award they have for the clicker kiss.
Out of all of them. It could have been the Bill and Frank.
3 of them. Bill and Frank. It could have been Ellie and Riley kiss at one point.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was. I mean, it's MTV. They're a little trashy, so it makes sense.
Sure.
Nick Offerman, moving on to the Emmys, which the Emmys are a little complicated. There's like the Primetime Emmy Arts or something like that, and then the Emmys. And I believe The Last of Us didn't actually take home anything in the regular, like, televised Emmys, the big ones. But it was the most nominated for the Primetime, the ones that they do not show. Most nominated and most wins. We've got, of course, Nick Offerman winning for Outstanding Guest Actor in a drama. Also nominated, of course, were also like Murray Bartlett and Lamar Johnson, who plays Henry, and Kayvon Montreal Woodard, what a name, who plays Sam. Who's also the cutest child alive.
I'm glad.
And then
I'm glad he got the nomination.
Yeah. Well, fucking all of them did.
Yeah, right. It's
Storm Reed was nominated, or actually won for Best Guest Actress in the same category. Which Melanie Linsky and Anna Torv were also nominated. So just cleaning up in that category.
Yeah.
Last of Us also won Outstanding Prosthetic Makeup, Visual Effects, main title design, which I'm personally a big fan of those things. I think it was made by the same people who do the Game of Thrones titles.
Right.
Sound mixing and our dramas and sound editing and picture editing. So a lot of the like lesser respected, like, you know what I mean? Like, people don't really care so much. Like, the average consumer doesn't care so much. But I'm sure in the industry, those are very important awards because a show would be nothing without like a really good sound mixer. Or I love a title design, a main title design. I'm a big fan of those.
Especially with The Last of Us and like all the clickers and everything like that. Those episodes, man, I still remember like hearing it and feeling the chills, you know?
The prosthetic effects and the visual, or prosthetic makeup and the visual effects, And I think that's pretty much it in terms of awards. I think it didn't really win much at the Golden Globes, if I'm remembering correctly. It won something, I think.
I know that we won when we got to see Neil Druckmann on the red carpet getting no pictures taken. I think that that was our award.
No pictures of
That
Neil
was...
Druckmann is exactly what I've always wanted.
He was posting and everything too. I was just like, bro.
No one knows who you are.
We're gamers, okay? I'm sorry, but they don't care.
Neil, you're a gamer with a lisp. They don't want to take a picture of you. I'm just kidding.
It's fine.
I'm just playing.
We'll
I have
to
a complicated relationship with Neil Druckmann. So
we would love to have you on the show.
Speak for yourself, Tafrey. I mean, you can hire me at Naughty Dog, but you can't come to this this podcast.
You can hire us, and then just like, we'll delete the bots.
Yeah. That's it. I'll sell out if I get a job at Naughty Dog.
Yeah.
But anyway, I did want to talk about. I flew to Los Angeles from Austin, Texas. Stayed in an expensive Airbnb. Bought Universal Studio tickets just to go to the Halloween Horror Nights haunted house of The Last of Us. The Last of Us Halloween, whatever. I'm sweating now because I need everybody to know that I have a horrible relationship with haunted houses. I hate them. I am a person who suffers from panic attacks, generalized anxiety, constant fear.
Yeah.
First time I ever went to a haunted house was 2 years ago. I was there with my friends. It was the House of Torment. Have you ever been?
No, because I love myself, but...
Fair. Very reasonable. I no longer do. I went in one haunted house, thought I was having a heart attack, because that's how panic manifests in my personal body, and for a lot of people.
Right.
And sat outside as my friends went to the other haunted houses and just relaxed.
Nice.
And yet, with that being my only previous haunted house experience, Tafrey,
yes,
I love The Last of Us so much that I went to the fucking Halloween Horror Nights haunted house in Los Angeles, which, thank God, allegedly was better than the Florida one.
Okay, good. Yeah.
It smelled like sewage. I waited online for an hour with my heart at like 208 BPM. I was suffering. I almost peed myself. But the thing is, by the time I got into the house, it was so immersive. I think I only jumped once, and it was one of the actors playing Joel bursting out of like a wall with a Molotov just right in front of me, and I didn't expect him. But I'd also prepared. I had gone and watched YouTube videos so I would know what all the rooms look like.
Oh my god.
That's how anxious of a person I am. But also, I got in there and it all went away. I was in front of my group, but it was just me and Noah, actually. I was just in front of him, and usually I would like to hide behind him, but people would fucking antagonize me if I'm hiding behind my large friend. So I was just behind like this small woman, and she was... I recommend, if you're going into a haunted house and you're fucking scared shitless, staying like not too close behind someone where people know you're scared, because scare actors will go after you and they will antagonize you. But enough where like you don't have to push open the scariest thing is they have these like a meat locker. You know how they have those plastic strips hanging down? They have that in haunted houses, so you can't see the next room, so it's scarier. That's the scariest part, is opening those. So as long as you're close enough to like kind of get in there before they close again and you have to open them, you should be good.
Okay.
But it was fucking awesome. It was I mean, not canon, but it's like part of the sewers.
Oh, okay.
Where it's just Joel and Ellie, or I think they're supposed to be in Pittsburgh. And it's you've got hunters going after you. You've got clickers. There was a bloater who like ripped a head open at one point. It was fucking awesome.
Sick.
The actors playing the clickers were so cool because they were basically like the ones in the show, like the same actors, probably some of them, because they're they're doing the contorting and the clicking, and I just remember crying at the very end because Joel and Ellie were standing right there. They were just like mannequins, these ones, though. They weren't actors, but they were just like standing there like, wow, we did it, or something like that. And I was like, they're right here in front of me.
I can touch them.
I could touch
tell them how much I love them.
But I did a lot of screaming like, oh, Joel, Jesus! Shit like that. I'm getting my hair all askew.
You just embodied your inner Ellie and just like, Jesus, Joel.
Pretty much, yeah. I highly
awesome.
recommend watching a walkthrough of it. It's probably like 10-15 minutes long.
Mm-hmm.
But after that experience in the haunted house, I came out feeling like a god. First of all, I was just fucking thrilled because I was like in The Last of Us for 15 minutes, even though it's like a depressing, horrible world that I shouldn't want to live in. It's nice to be immersed in something you love so much.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's awesome.
But Halloween Horror Nights does this. They take over almost the whole park. I think the whole park. Yeah, the whole park. But they have these scare zones where the scare actors will roam around, and they're usually different themes and stuff. And this theme was like, they had these guys who were dressed as crows on stilts who were cool, but their themes were like ghosts and murderous toys and things like that. And the toy actors kept trying to come for me, man. They kept trying it, and I just laughed at them because I felt like an impervious god.
Yeah,
I felt
you got
so
the superstar.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was my Halloween Horror Nights experience. Highly recommend. I think the Florida Universal is much bigger, so if you do want to take a trip to a Universal Studios, you should probably go to that one.
Yeah.
Despite their Last of Us house apparently not being that great. Comparatively.
That's okay. I need to go back to Florida anyways. I owe them money.
Yes.
But that's, you know what, that's very similar to like my experience with just horror games in general. I don't fuck with horror at all. I don't like getting scared whatsoever, but like The Last of Us was something different for me. I love the world, I love the characters, and I genuinely enjoy the experience so much that I was able to do a bunch of other horror games ever since. So
cool.
Yeah.
Last of Us is also like not sorry.
No, go ahead.
It's not a horror game in the way that like Amnesia or Outlast are horror games.
Yeah.
In that the scares, well, Amnesia's actually different because the scares aren't mostly jump scares. But something like Outlast, like there's a lot of jumps. Or like Five Nights at Freddy's is a great example because I find that game so difficult to play. For a lot of reasons, but primarily it just being an hour-long piss fest of waiting for a jump scare that you know is coming at some point.
Right.
The worst thing for me is when I know a jump scare is coming. Usually if one of those jump scares that's completely out of the blue, you know, the good ones, it doesn't actually scare me that much because I'm just like, huh, cool. But if I know it's coming, it's the anticipation is building and building and building and building.
Exactly.
It makes it harder. Last of Us has a couple of moments that are almost like jump scary, but there's never anything like a clicker in your face or something like that, and it's horrifying in the sort of what people are doing and what's becoming of the world way.
Yeah, I think anytime you're in a stalker segment, I basically want to piss myself in and turn off the PlayStation.
Those
like,
are
God.
And I think the first game only has one or two. There's the one at the bottom of the hotel.
And then there's the one in the sewers.
Yes, the one in the sewers.
Yeah, and then they improved the stalker AI for part 2, which made it worse for me.
Yes, personally.
Yeah, it's a personal attack. That's one of the very reasons why I haven't played part 2 in a very long time.
I don't even remember the stalkers in part 2. Where are they?
I believe it was during Abby's segment through Seattle with Lev, and they were going through some of the buildings, and then Ellie had one too. Yeah, there were definitely some parts in Seattle with stalkers.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. I just don't remember them. I remember the Rat King, which was quite a moment.
Oh, I can't. We're getting a Rat King adaptation.
I just realized that too.
Oh my gosh, that's gonna be sick. Oh,
that's gonna be their what is the word? Their submission, I guess, for visual effects Emmy for sure.
Oh yeah, if the bloater episode was their like big one for season 1.
Yeah, I figured that's probably why they won that Emmy, was that episode.
Yeah, I can only imagine what they're gonna do with Rat King.
Dude.
Oh, sorry. I just I know this is all about the upcoming season and how excited we are for the casting and everything, but there are going to be moments.
Yeah. No, this is perfect.
Big moments. I'm so excited.
So I guess we do have predictions listed on our agenda. I don't know if we actually have predictions. Rat
Oh,
King
yeah.
is a prediction. They're gonna have it,
That King is
right?
a prediction. Yeah. Yeah. I think did we say this earlier, or did we say this in the pre-one that like it might end like?
We talked a little bit in this episode
Yeah.
about when we think the seasons will cut off and blah blah blah.
Yeah. It's probably gonna be like, the right before the transfer over to Abby and everything, which means that we get like so many of those moments with Ellie and Dina during their trip to Seattle.
Yeah.
I'm interested in seeing like how they're going to incorporate the flashbacks, because I think the game gets entirely more enjoyable probably on the second run, or every time after that, once you have the knowledge of what Ellie and Joel went through. Since
Yes.
that's kind of what a lot of people who played the first game wanted going into part two. And now that you have that backstory of like how they were able to like almost make amends, the rest of the game, the new narrative itself, is very intense and interesting. So
Yeah.
I'm wondering how they're going to handle that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's also like what you're saying about the second playthrough. It's also just a lot easier because you know what's happening and nothing can stress you out anymore because it's not surprising. Like that
Right.
first fight between Ellie and Abby in the theater, I was shitting my pants.
Right.
Because you're playing Abby too, I think. Yeah, and you're
Yeah.
going after Ellie. And I'm like,
Mhm.
oh man, I don't want to do this, but I also have grown so attached to Abby that I don't want her to lose.
Right.
And
Like,
that turns out better than either of them dying, but still horrible,
right.
that fight.
And I think it's also interesting because of the video gamey perspective of like you're switching
Right.
not only just the perspective of the story of who you're controlling. And so many people, when they're like, all right, you got to go fight Ellie, it's just like, I'm putting the controller down. I don't
Yeah.
want to do that.
That's one of the
my-
really interesting ways the game uses the medium.
Mhm.
Another one for me is by the time you get to like Santa Barbara and you're playing
Yes.
Ellie again, you're fucking sick of it. You don't want to do it anymore. And I think that's meant to recreate the way that she's drawing this out, that this is really something she doesn't have to do, but here she is doing it because she just can't stop. And unless you don't want to finish the game, you also just can't stop.
Yeah, yeah. And honestly, I think it's easier to watch either somebody else play through it or probably like watch the show than to do those actions yourself. Like even during Ellie's, which I cannot wait for Bella Ramsey's descent into madness when it comes to this.
That'll
role.
be good.
Yeah, that's going to be so good. But like during the torture scene, especially with the crowbar and everything, I didn't want to press square. I didn't want to.
Yeah.
I didn't want to proceed with that.
Yeah.
But it's way easier to watch in a way that happen than to be the proactive player. So I feel like I personally will have a better experience with the show version because doing a lot of these actions was making me feel bad as a human being. I don't want to shoot another dog.
And that's also something the game does really well with the non-linear storytelling, like we were talking about earlier, where a good example is when I was Ellie and I went to the hospital that Nora is at. There's a guy patrolling with a dog. And I threw on my final play, I think I probably had to play that a couple times, but on my final, the one that worked, I threw a Molotov at the guy and the dog. And then you hear someone going, "Bear, no!" to the dog. You cut several hours of gameplay later to Abby picking up Alice, the dog, for her whole ordeal. And a dog brings you a ball when you're in the little dog pen. And the dog puts down the ball, and you give him a pet, and you say, "Hey, Bear." And there's a clip on my Twitch channel of me seeing this for the first time. I literally got up. You can hear me shouting off camera, I remember Bear. I threw a Molotov at Bear. Like that kind of shit makes it so hard. And it's also a great use of the medium because I did that. That was my I didn't have to kill the dog. I could have found out another way. Yes, it's just a fucking pixel dog, but also is a mother of two dogs. That one in particular really got me.
Yeah, and that's intentional on the game devs part,
Yeah,
which
they knew it.
is one of the reasons why I believe they're Satan. Um, but uh, yeah, have you seen a playthrough of The Last of Us Part Two? Like not playing it yourself?
No, I've never watched someone else play it. Well, I've watched
Um,
Anna play it actually.
yeah. And maybe still, if it's somebody you know, somebody you're in the room you're communicating with, you can like still kind of judge the actions based on the player.
Yeah.
Um, but when you're watching it so indirectly of just like a playthrough itself, or like probably how we're going to watch the show, it's kind of hard to believe like this is Ellie's decision. This is Abby's decision. Uh, Making these choices and doing this kind of horrible shit. That it's I'm very excited to see these portrayals on screen. Like
Yes.
they're gonna bring their A game for this. But it might be a very hard watch.
Oh, it absolutely will be. But it was a very hard play.
Yeah.
I think it'll be a harder play than it is a watch.
Yeah.
But it'll still I mean, there's also this separation that comes from playing a game where, like I said about he's a pixel dog, like they're not people. It is a lot harder, even though you know it's fiction, to watch like like watching Joel get kicked and golf clubbed and shot in the stomach and everything. Hard in the game. Might be harder when it's Pedro Pascal, a real human being who we've also grown pretty attached to, both as Joel and off camera.
Yeah.
So there's definitely advantages to both mediums. I keep just thinking about the first time I ever really thought about how gameplay is a really crucial can really, really impact the way you tell a story is the first BioShock game, where I think it's when you're beating Andrew Ryan to death with the golf club. It feels like something that the player should at least like press square to hit him or something like that. But I'm pretty sure that scene is just a cutscene. Yeah. But still from, Jack's perspective, still first person. And it speaks so much to the would you kindly, the he can't control it, you're not controlling him, you're completely out of control thing. That was the first time I really thought about it like that and engaged with video games as a medium of storytelling in this way. And I think The Last of Us Part 2 really just sort of takes that and just multiplies it in a lot of ways that are really, really cool. And I just really love seeing, for everything from huge AAA games like The Last of Us Part 2 to smaller indie titles, the way they use games to tell stories.
Yeah, absolutely. And just one last point to that. I think the moment I discovered that kind of like dissociation between like yourself as the player and the game character was at the end of The Last of Us Part 1, when Joel's going through the hospital and everything. And you may not agree with the reason why he's like going after to save Ellie. But you're also just like, I've done this before. And you just like shot, you shoot everybody and you don't really think a second thought about it. And then there's that doctor at the end, and it's just like, I don't really want to kill you, dude.
He's the only one
you got the scalpel.
You have to kill, right?
You absolutely have to kill
that game design choice. I don't know at which point Neil Druckmann was writing Part 2 and had figured out who that doctor was and how he impacts the events of Part 2. But just that game design choice where you have to kill that guy when you really logically wouldn't have to kill him. You hold the gun to him. I think he's pretty firm about like, I'm going to do this. But Joel could have tackled him or something. The guy's got a scalpel. He's not gonna fucking...
You could have just pushed him aside.
Right.
It's fine.
That game design choice impacts the entire sequel. It's crazy because I think it might be coincidence, but it's a really great coincidence.
I think I agree. I think that was just a coincidence, that was just a program thing.
Do you write it all, Taff?
I do, yeah.
Do you find that sometimes things work out very coincidentally, but really well for you?
Yeah.
I find that too. I think that's part of the beauty of writing is you just kind of discover. A lot of times also artists like will make art, whatever form of art it is, and they will ascribe meaning to it afterwards because they'll realize like either what they were subconsciously thinking or just how it's kind of conveniently has this image. Right. And I just think that's something kind of interesting to think about in this regard as well.
And it happens in like every stage of like either writing or like making the production or making the assets or making the acting, right? It's just these happy little accidents keep on happening, and that's when you get like something magical, like both Last of Us Part 1 and Part 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, do you have any more predictions for season 2?
Um, I think they're probably going to cut down on the violence.
You
Um,
think so?
I think so.
Hmm.
I think just based on like what we saw in season 1, um, they didn't want to show like how many bodies these characters have left behind in their wake and everything. It just has to be like enough for the TV show to keep pace. But if they portray Ellie as she was in game, as she is going to be in the series, then they're not going to want to like, I wouldn't say root for her. I don't think the intention of season 2 is supposed to be that you're rooting for Ellie. But you just wouldn't want to even tune in. She's almost a serial killer at a certain point, you know?
There's a fine line you have to balance between making your character, like, it's kind of like the decision with Joel at the end of the first game, where you're like, well, I would like to say that I personally would let Ellie die on the table. But me knowing me and how strongly I care about the people in my life who I love, I know that I wouldn't. Like, in a very sort of maybe not practical. Yeah, in a very sort of pragmatic way. Like, I know I just wouldn't be able to do it. I don't care how selfish it is. And I think that's part of the beauty of The Last of Us Part 1 is that sort of realization about yourself. And there's definitely some introspection on the writer's part for Part 2.
Yeah.
And, yeah, go ahead.
I was also going to ask if, like, do you think that they're going to expand on the lore a little bit like they did in Part 1 with certain things, like, you know, the origins of the virus in Part 1? So, like, maybe...
that... I don't know. Like, I think it's kind of interesting.
Where would you want that if they did?
We know that it started... Oh, I don't remember where it started, but it was like I want to say a Middle Eastern country or something?
Yeah, it was like one of those big grain mills, like the largest wheat.
Right, yeah, something like that. Yeah, we definitely saw some backstory, but we don't know. I don't know, I think there's I'm watching a show right now called The Leftovers. It was also an HBO show.
Yeah.
And it's about almost like a rapture, but they never really, I don't think they ever really clarify. We're only on like halfway through season 2. But like 2% of the world's population disappears or something like that. And I don't think they are ever going to address why that happened. In fact, the season 2 opening song is about like, it's a country song. It's a really upbeat country song sung by some woman with a beautiful country twang. But she's like, nobody knows where we go and we die, basically. And that's okay, and we'll never know. And I'm pretty sure that's the message the writers are sending. Like, we're never going to tell you why this happens. You just have to deal with the aftermath of it. And I think that there's something interesting in engaging with the premise of a narrative that way, where you don't really address like how something happened. But I also think with something like The Last of Us, where it's like a sci-fi but scientific thing, it is a little interesting to know like how it happened, and it grounds it in realism that makes it more terrifying. I think there was relatively recently a story about a guy who did get infected with a fungus similar to cordyceps, but not quite. It was like the first time a human had ever been infected with this specific fungus. You can fact check me on this, but I'm pretty sure something like this happened. And that, of course, everybody's talking about The Last of Us then. Yeah, and that's the kind of thing that... my brick. Right. And that's the kind of thing where, like, the scientific aspect of it and the actually trying to explain it and answer those questions becomes really, really entertaining and interesting and scary in a fun way, hopefully.
Right.
So, I don't know. Maybe they'll address it more. It's not really... This season's really not so much about that, though. That's the only thing.
I was curious if like you wanted to see more of like Abby and her group, or like maybe of course
definitely.
I absolutely want to get more of their dynamic, to understand like how the WLF works per se, because it's just like, all right, I see like 6 cows on this field. Is that enough for feeding this entire stadium?
Maybe that's only one stadium of many that they have or something.
Exactly. That's what I'm kind of interested in, like where how they got all the way from Utah, right, Salt Lake City, all the way to
Yeah,
Seattle.
wherever the fuck. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, it
how
would
did they get
be in
involved?
the game they just basically cut from leaving to being in Seattle. And you hear
Right.
like snippets of dialogue about like what happened every so
Yeah.
often. Like remember that guy in blank or remember that night we spent in blank, stuff like that.
Mm. Yeah.
But it would be definitely cool to see cuz part of the appeal of the first game is that sort of like odyssey of their journey
Yes.
from Boston to wherever the fuck they end up. I don't even remember anymore.
Hmm.
Wherever Tommy
Yeah.
lives. Wyoming? Is it
We
Wyoming?
keep on going back to that. We're just like, where the fuck are they?
It's too many. There's too many locations in the world.
We just know the county. We know it's Jackson County.
Right,
It's
right,
just
right.
like,
Jackson County. I want to say
mhm.
Wyoming. I'm gonna go with Wyoming.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, and and you know like that's all the fucking Lord of the Rings is. I'm reading Fellowship of the Ring right now, and it's just walking, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
entertaining. So I
It
like seeing
is.
those kinds of journeys, and I won't mind if half of season 1 is Ellie and Dina on the road, because then I also get to watch their relationship blossom, because you see like
Exactly.
them get together the first time in the very
Hmm.
beginning of the game, and then by the
Right.
time you get to Seattle they're saying I love you and stuff like
Yeah.
that. We don't really know, actually I don't know if they do a cutaway of like 3 months later or something to give us some idea of how much time has passed.
I think they
I
did.
think they might.
I don't know how much time has passed, but I do know that was like one of my like kind of problems with part two is that I wanted more of the character interactions.
Yeah,
I wanted to know like way more about Dina, and I was just like that 3 month time span. Like they're practically in a relationship by the time
they're
they
practically
leave.
married by the time they get to Seattle.
And that's great. I wanted to
Mm.
see that.
Yeah, totally. So I would like to see some more of that.
Hmm.
Oh, there was something that I just thought of that totally left my brain. It's hard having this brain.
Yeah.
It's difficult. But yeah, I guess we should probably, we're at an hour almost, so we might want to
Oh yeah.
mini episode my ass. Is there any, do you have any other predictions? I really haven't even like sat down to think about it yet. I've just been
Mhm.
like playing Death Stranding and
Well, I'm sure
waiting.
if and when we get to playing through season two together, then we're actually going to have like a lot more predictions of like how they're going to either
Yes.
expand, change, or adapt these scenes from part two. And if anything, this conversation, this podcast in general, has made me so excited to play through it again. I can't wait to hear your thoughts and see you play through. With your skill level, it's way higher than
Oh,
mine when it comes to The Last of Us.
thank
I'm
you.
very excited.
I'm also excited about the new scenes that they're gonna add, that they've added to
Oh,
remaster.
yeah.
So I think
Yeah.
after we cut, we're gonna talk about what we're gonna play and how we're gonna deal with that. But
Mhm.
I think this is a good place to wrap up. So
Yep.
that's the last of it for today's mini quote unquote episode.
Fucking
I know, I'm
Joker.
so funny. Thank you everybody so much for joining us. I actually have no idea who was here, but also if you're listening or watching the YouTube VOD or the Twitch VOD, because it'll be there too.
Right.
Keep a lookout for season 2. We will try to announce when that's going to happen as soon as possible. We're going to cover Last of Us Part 2, like we've been talking about, the game, not the show. It doesn't exist yet. While we wait for the second season of the show. Again, we're going to try to keep doing this on Twitch, ideally on a regular schedule, like maybe every Saturday at 2 or something. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And then we'll post that VOD on YouTube and the audio on Spotify.
Yeah.
How can you keep a lookout, you might ask? How can you know when season 2 is going to come out? Well, there's a couple of places. First, you can follow us on Twitter at, I think it's Cast of Us Podcast, not The Cast of Us or anything like that. Cast of Us Podcast. At Zoe Terhune for myself, and at Mongkuo. I should probably spell both of our last names. Terhune for me. Mongkuo for Tafrey. I nailed it. I do know how to spell.
That's wild.
For the most part. I don't know how to spell LASIK, as we covered last week, but
It's hard.
It's hard. Or if you already follow us on Twitter and you want even fucking more, you can go on Spotify, The Cast of Us. There's a couple of them, are the ones with the microphone that's down here in our little cute little screen thing. YouTube at Zoe Terhune, and Twitch at Trudel Strudels. I know that that's not brand consistent at all. We have 4 episode listeners. Like, I don't need to be brand consistent. Or you can hit us up at thecastofUsPod, also not consistent, at gmail.com for questions, thoughts, feelings, rants, love letters. I'll take love letters. I am engaged, but I will read them and be like, thank you. I don't feel the same way. Tafrey is single, so if you have a love letter for him, and look how cute he is. How could you not? Maybe I'll write a little love letter to our email.
Thank you, Zoe.
And yeah, I think that wraps it all up. Is there anything else you want to say, Taff, or should we say goodbye?
I like bricks over bottles.
I also like bricks over bottles because sometimes they don't break. Cool. And that's science. See you again soon, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Bye. We love you.